We've all heard about it, but do we know what it really is? Euthanasia, also known as assisted suicide, refers to the practice of intentionally ending a life in order to relieve suffering and pain. However, the subject is usually debated on whether helping someone to end a life is allowed or not. I've spoken to people in the local area to see what they know about euthanasia.
No, it's about giving the right of the patients to die. I am against it.
Ability to choose death. I'm for it.
Euthanasia can be classified in different ways. This involves voluntary, non-voluntary and involuntary euthanasia. Non-voluntary euthanasia is illegal in all countries. Voluntary. This is the most simplest of all. This is when the patient gives full consent for them to be assisted in death. Non-voluntary. This is when the patient cannot give consent, for example, if they are brain dead. Therefore, a doctor or next of kin will make a decision based on the patient's best interest. Involuntary. This is the kind also known as murder. This is when the patient can give consent, however, they are put down against their will. Different countries use different methods of euthanasia. There are 4 main methods. Drugs. This is the method most commonly used in Switzerland. An oral overdose of an anemic drug is given, followed approximately 30 seconds later by a lethal overdose of powdered pentobarbital dissolved in either water or fruit juice. This overdose depresses the central nervous system and causes respiratory arrest. Injections. This is the method most commonly used in the Netherlands. There are 2 injections, one which sends the patient into a coma. The second stops the heart beating. Sometimes potassium chloride is given to speed up cardiac arrest. Starvation dehydration. Terminal sedation is mixed with the complete removal of all foods and fluids. Gases, plastic bags and the peaceful pill. These are the methods most commonly used in Australia and New Zealand. Helium is given to cause death by lung failure. The peaceful pill is a barbiturate-based pill. I found out about an organisation called Dignity in Dying, which advocates dying for terminally ill, mentally competent adults. They believe that everyone has the right to a dignified death. I got in contact with one of the members from Dignity in Dying, and I've come to speak to her about what it is that she does.
I work for Dignity in Dying because I believe passionately that the law should change to allow terminally ill people the choice of an assisted death. I got interested in the issue, and then I got involved in Dignity in Dying, and the more time I spend hearing about how people are suffering because there isn't the choice of an assisted death, the more I believe that the law should change. I think that the assisted dying law should apply to people who are terminally ill only, because I think there are risks if you were to legalise euthanasia or assisted suicide more broadly. I do think that current law puts some people in really difficult situations and means that people who loved ones of those who are suffering have to either break the law or say no to a compassionate request for help to end their loved one's suffering. Dignity in Dying's campaign is to legalise assisted dying in the UK for people who are terminally ill and mentally competent, and as Dignity in Dying's aim is quite specific, but we've also got a charity, Compassion in Dying, which helps people to have a good death under the current law. So Compassion in Dying provides advanced decisions to refuse treatment and advice for people who want to maybe die at home and who don't know how they can get the support and the access to the services so they can die at home. So if anybody is interested in the issue or thinks that the law should change, then they should have a look at Dignity in Dying's website and see about getting involved. You don't have to join as a member, but people can do things like write to their MP, speak to other people who might be supportive of a change in the law and get involved in the campaign, because we're not going to change the law without people out there getting involved.
Jo helped me to get in contact with one of the relatives of someone who wanted to end their life. Leslie Close helped her brother John die in 2002 when he was diagnosed with motor neurone disease. He could not stand or swallow and needed full-time care. He had to communicate via computer as his speech was unintelligible. I've spoken to Leslie to find out more information. So what are your personal views on euthanasia?
I prefer to use the term assisted dying.
Okay.
it's a small point, but it's an important one to me, because my view is that the law should be changed to permit terminally ill, mentally competent adults who are suffering intolerably to have the right to die.
How long had John been suffering with MND before you went to Dignitas?
John was diagnosed with motor neurone disease in March 2001, and he died in May 2003, so just over 2 years.
How did you find out about euthanasia?
And he found out about it because in January 2003, a man from Liverpool called Reg Crew was the first British person to go to Dignitas. He went with his wife and daughter. He too had motor neurone disease, and at that point my brother had just started having the first of a series of 20, and we were just about to leave him on a Saturday night, and we normally would have stayed over. And he said, "I've got something I want to show you." And he showed us the story of Reg Crew and his journey to Dignitas, and because he could no longer speak, he typed, "That's how I'd like to go when my time comes." And that, my reaction to that was that I typed. I don't normally type my answers to him because he could hear everything I was saying, but I didn't want him to hear the little catch of tears that was in my throat, so I typed, "It's your life and I'll help you to do whatever you want."
Was there anyone who went against your choices?
The only one was my mother, our mother, and she came from a very strong Christian faith, and she was worried that in ending his own life he would be excluding himself from a place in heaven where she was certain she was going. It was a complicated situation, and it was made very difficult for him because John was very close to our mother, and he didn't like the thought of hurting her, but at the same time his own life came first for him.
Would you stand by the choices you made?
I do stand by the choice that he made and that I helped him to achieve.
The 1961 Suicide Act decriminalised suicide and introduced the crime of assisting someone to end their life. This carries a sentence of up to 14 years in prison. The Act explicitly gives the Director of Public Prosecution discretion over whether to prosecute cases of encouraging or assisting suicide. Depending on the circumstances, euthanasia is regarded as either manslaughter or murder. As we all know, most religions have strong beliefs about life and death, so I've spoken to a local priest to find out about the church's views.
It's morally wrong because the Catholic Church holds up the right to life as fundamental. I do. I don't think it's right that it should be legalised, because I think it opens itself up to abuse, even with the best intentions. So I think each case has to be taken separately. So if somebody came to me and in the congregation said that they wanted to die, I think I would sit down with them and ask them why, and then it's hypothetical. It would depend on what they would then say.
Dignitas is a Swiss-assisted dying group that helps those with terminal illness and severe physical and mental illness to die, assisted by qualified doctors and nurses. Dignitas usually follows the method of drug use. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. No one's denying you that. But everyone is also entitled to their own lives and deaths.